Good afternoon, my friends. How are you all doing today? I hope that as we continue to navigate through this crisis, that you're all staying safe. Okay? I have a question before us today, and it is, how do you overcome resentment in your relationship? Now, I would like to use a quote from one Stephen Marabili. And this is how Stephen talks about resentment. Let today be the day you stop being haunted by the ghosts of yesterday. Holding a grudge and harboring anger and resentment is like poison to the soul. Unquote. So that is how Stephen view what resentment looks like in a relationship. And you and I know that poison is not a good thing. As in most cases, it either kills or harm or cause harm. So, can you imagine? Resentment is just not a good thing to harbor in your life if it could be viewed as what poison can do. And so, once couples realize that resentment is taking over their relationship, they really need to seek help immediately because it has now become a crisis and it can really harm the relationship in more than one ways. But what I would also want to point out is that resentment doesn't just happen overnight. So let's look on a definition for resentment. It can be defined as a disappointment, hurt feelings, or any other negative emotion that persists over a period of time. And so, as I'm going to take a moment to look at some causes that will happen over a period of time that can, allow resentment to take over the relationship. And I'm sorry about that. The reality is, when two people are married, they are in a relationship to love, to care, and to be there for each other. And this does takes various behaviors and actions to fulfill. And so some of the ways that can cause resentment would be when a partner pays less attention to the other spouse. That in itself can cause resentment, or if your spouse feel neglected in the relationship. It means that, one of the partner is focusing their attention in other things that is not in relation to the relationship itself. So whatever that thing is, whether it's going to be work or other pleasure out there, outside of the relationship, whatever that is, if more attention is given, your spouse can feel neglected, and that can lead to resentment. Another point is treating your partner like a child. Because let's face it, when one married, you do not want to feel like you are managed by your spouse. That can rob their self-worth and their self-value. So we got to be careful when you're married to make sure that you give your partner that space to feel like they are an adult in the relationship. The other point is there may be lack of intimacy. And intimacy is a very vital area within the relationship. And it should be mutual for both spouses to participate in intimacy. And so when that is not fulfilling, and remember, intimacy is not just about sex. And so it's just to be there for each other, to love upon each other, to be romantically engaging with each other. It's a very vital aspect within the relationship. And if that is not being fulfilling, as I said before, it can cause resentment. Spending more time with friends or other family members than with your spouse, gotta watch out for that one too. And failing to remember to celebrate special occasions with your spouse. And this can be done in simple ways. The important thing is to allow your spouse to have an understanding. Just be mindful of that. So you have persons who can plan vacations and going to the beach or plan a dinner event and you name it. While you may have other spouses who may just take home a rose or take home a little gift in their pockets if it's a male, or for the female they may take home a little gift in their purse. Whatever that is, it's important to be mindful of it, because it's all about the individuals. It's all about you and your spouse, what works for you. Some persons like the extra things, and some persons may be okay with the little things. As you know, the thought says is the thoughts that counts. So it's whatever works for you, but be mindful of these other things, because it can cause some form of resentment. Not showing or feeling appreciation for the things that is done right. And that is very, very important, because in most cases, the things that are wrong, they are easily seen. And remember, we should not be so. And so you'd find couples who share the things that are wrong with the relationship, the things that are wrong with each individual, or the fingers are pointing to one individual, whatever that is. And so there are times when you got to take a moment and say, so what are the positives? What are the things that you like about your spouse? And sometimes persons find it so hard to even share the good. And finally, take some time, but finally, if one of the activity is write down some of the things that is going good within the relationship, or the things that you like, and you find a reasonable list. But sometimes it's so hard to even say it, and so couples have to look out for that. Not showing or feeling appreciation in the relationship can cause resentment. And especially when you are trying and you are never validated about anything that you do or done right. Okay. Another thing is when one partner feels like they are more loving, they show more love in the relationship, They might be the touchy huggy type. They are more attentive in the relationship than the other partner. So they feel like they're always giving and not receiving. Very delicate, can cause a lot of hurt, and it can also develop in resentment. So we got to pay some attention to that. It should be a share feeling, it should be reciprocating in the relationship, okay? Now, selfishness is one of those dangerous things that can cause resentment. You know, this is when couples only think about their own needs and forget that marriage is a partnership, it's a union, it's a togetherness. And so couples are to think about each other. Selfishness should not be in a relationship. And so that's one of the things that couples have to look out for. Be careful how they go about just thinking about their own needs. And that does not suggest that you don't have your own needs and you're not to work on them or make sure that they're met. That's not what this is saying. But if you are showing selfishness to the point that your partner is feeling resenting or feeling some amount of resentment, then there is a problem with that. The last point I would like to make is that when you think about all of the things that I made mention of that causes resentment, it could summarize as partners not getting their needs met. And so as you take a moment to look at all of these things, just ask yourself the question, am I meeting the needs of my partner? Because all of them points to that sentence. Suppose not getting their needs met. And so because of that, over a period of time, it stays there and it stores up, and then it starts to cause resentment. And remember what Stephen said, it's like a poison. Now, back to the question, how do you overcome resentment? I will suggest 10 simple suggestions that couples can try. The first one is to express your feelings. Share what you're feeling, what causes you to feel a resentment towards your spouse for that particular situation. And when you're sharing, be respectful about it. Because you know what? You might be resenting your spouse for something that the other one is not aware of. Always bear that in mind. So it should not be an anger tantrum to express your needs or what is causing you to resent your partner. So approach it with respect and care when you're sharing it. The second point is, try not to sweep the resentment, the feeling that is stored up, as we would normally say, under the rug. But instead, it's very important to face it, okay? Confront the issue. And do so with a level of maturity. You can address resentment in a safe way as soon as the issue arises. Because here, what is the problem? The more it is stored up, that's how the resentment built and continue to build up. The third point is you could try also, and I want to say this carefully, try to work on yourself in how you manage some of these emotions, some of the feelings that built up over time. Because the reason why I'm saying this, things will happen that a spouse is not going to be okay with. But you do not want it to rob you from enjoying your life. I'm sorry. You do not want it to, to influence you to the point that you can't be happy. And so if you find that everything causes you to store up resentment, it is saying something to you to do some work on you. Whether it's your self-esteem, your self-value, your self-worth, whatever that is, I would want to suggest that you be mindful of that area of your life also. And the fourth point I want to suggest is hear what your spouse have to say about what is causing the resentment in the relationship. Listen to each other point of view, because there may be a reason for the things that they're doing or the things that they're saying. There might be some reason. Now, it doesn't mean that whatever they're saying is okay, it's good. But listen to each other, ask questions, and find out what's going on. Why is this happening? Or why is this not happening? So, hear what your spouse is saying about what you point out to them that is causing you to feel that way, to the point that now you resent each other or the other person. Number 5 point is take a moment to think on the fact that you and your spouse are different. You're two different persons with different personality, different genes, different background, etc. So don't be afraid to talk with your spouse about these things, because that's the only way you're going to have the information about their intentions and why they are doing the things that is causing this problem in your relationship. The 6th point is another way that you can work on resentment and to the point that you can overcome it is to try and establish some new ways, new patterns of behavior in the relationship. So after you listen, after you talk, after you hear what each other is saying, after you build up yourself, you work on yourself and you know what that, you have some strength and you're ready to talk about it and to listen to each other, then you have to come to a point where something has to happen differently. It's like you can redirect the negative energy into positive ones. And so once you're at that point, something's got to change. Just change talk about the changes, okay? And try and establish some new ways or some new patterns of behavior within the relationship. It's all about the togetherness. Both of you having a conversation as to what you want, where you want to go from where you are at that moment. Now I state, I present, I am now talking about these resentments. I want you to know and to understand that these are the things that are bothering me, and I want to move past them. And so after we're done doing all of this, what is it that we can do to move forward? And that is where you will now establish these new patterns of behaviors within your relationship. The next point is, make each other a priority within the relationship. This must not only be said, but it must be felt and known. Because each of you should be a priority within the relationship. You know, you are my main guy, you are my main girl. And so together, when you feel it, man, it shows, right? It shows. Because you know for sure that it doesn't matter what's happening. If it's a busy day, if it's a rocky day, if it's a hard day, in the long run, I am for you, you are for me. All right? The 8th point. This one is also very essential. Focus on the positives. And I think I used this more than once in answering questions. But it just fits in almost everything within a relationship. Focus on the positives within the relationship. The positive about your spouse. Because sometimes couples get stuck in seeing only what is bad, what is not good, what is unhealthy. And while those things need to be talked about, but always never forget to talk about the positive, to share the positive. And so when something goes against you, you can flip the coin and say, you know what? At least there are these positive. Let's try and see how best we can change the other stuff. Number 9, be willing to check in on your expectations that you want from your partner and making sure that they are realistic. Very, very, very important, because sometimes the resentment could be because of the expectations that your spouse is not even aware of, or the expectation that your spouse maybe can't live up to because you have them so high. And get me clearly, your expectations are to be high, but you have them at a point. You have to know who you marry. And so in all of that, be careful of the expectations, how you set them, and the demands that you place on your spouse. Expectations is good, but they should be so set with an understanding that each of you have for each other, and show empathy, as you set them. Because if the expectations, are only what you want, then you're up for problem. Because never forget, there will always be flaws in an individual. Marriage does not take away flaws. And some may change, while some may just need some more love and understanding and prayer, with the hope that the changes will come. My final point. Resentment can be toxic. Resentment is unhealthy. It can destroy the very foundation of your marriage. If you don't try to address the resentment as it comes, it won't go away by itself. Bear that in mind. And so, do what you can to have that conversation. I will also say that when you're faced with life challenges, remember that prayer can change things. So take some time to pray about the situation. And if you are still holding on to resentment, you realize that you can't overcome it, please talk to a professional counselor or a relationship coach for further help. I wish you well and may God bless you and your relationship. Take care until next time.